I'm Cierra Bettens. This is APTN News InFocus. On this episode, a closer look at another police shooting in Nunavik. Over the holidays, a 6-year-old girl died in the community of Inughuaq, Nunavik, an Inuit community in northern Quebec. According to Nunavik News, Alicia Kallick was in bed with her mother when she was shot on December 20th. Her death was confirmed 10 days later. Details of exactly how she was shot are not known at the time of this broadcast, but she, along with her adoptive father, were airlifted to the hospital after a shootout with Nunavik Police. The father currently faces a number of charges, but police shootings in Nunavik are nothing new. APTN Investigates correspondent Tom Fennario has been researching police shootings in the Inuit territory, and he joins me now. Tom, what do we know about what happened in Inughuaq on December 20th?
Hi, Cierra. Yeah, so based on accounts from Quebec's police watchdog and from an eyewitness to the incident I spoke to, at around 3:30 in the morning, 911 call was reportedly made regarding a person in a residence who posed a danger to the other occupants. Nunavik police officers arrived on the scene at approximately 3:36 a.m. and encountered a person with a firearm outside the residence. An exchange in gunfire happened between the individual and the police officers. According to the witness, 5 shots were fired in total. The individual with the firearm was shot during the intervention and was arrested, and his adopted 6-year-old daughter was found seriously injured inside the house. Apparently, she was hiding in bed with her mother when she was shot. They were transported to Montreal for healthcare, where, as you mentioned, the 6-year-old died 10 days later.
And what are the people in the community saying about it?
Man, people are just devastated. I spoke to the aunt of the little girl, Lucy Naura, and she sent the statement for me to read. This incident has caused profound distress within our family and community. We are deeply concerned about the circumstances surrounding the use of force, the actions taken by police, and the adequacy of existing oversight mechanisms in such situations. Other people I've spoken to reflect her concern. I have seen comments and posts online that point the finger at social issues in the communities that sometimes serve as catalysts for armed standoffs with the police. For those who might not know, hunting is a huge part of life for Inuit. As a result, it's normal for homes to have hunting rifles, which can be dangerous when folks are having mental health crises. This is where it's important to mention the traumatic effects of colonialism, which is more recent for the Inuit in Nunavik than for other Indigenous people in Canada. Quebec, for instance, Quebec and Canada only really got involved in changing their way of life in the 1950s. So in addition to intergenerational trauma, to things from like residential schools, they've endured forced relocations and the RCMP led slaughter of their sled dogs, which devastated their traditional way of life. So long story short, people have been talking about social issues in the communities and what needs to be done. But at the end of the day, people are really looking at the police here and saying, what can you do now to do a better job of de-escalating these situations before they turn to violence?
So tell us more about the Nunavik Police Service. How many officers are in the service?
There are 155 active police officers spread out across 14 communities. And this is a territory the size of California, I believe.
Right, so Nunavik has about 14,000 people and 90% are Inuit. Does the police force reflect that?
No, not at all. They currently only have 3 Inuit officers as of November 2025.
And just to go back, what charges is the father facing?
Yes, according to the Canadian press, the father is charged with discharging a firearm at 2 police officers, assaulting the same officers with a weapon, and he is also facing a charge of assault against another person and unlawfully causing bodily harm to a child.
And what are some of the issues facing policing?
Well, for years they were underfunded, but in the last couple of years, it's my understanding that has improved somewhat. Perhaps the biggest challenge is that you have a police force that mainly doesn't speak the mother tongue of the people they serve. In this case, that language is Inuktitut, which certainly makes it harder to just de-escalate situations. One common complaint I hear is that many of the police officers are inexperienced, and with the aforementioned social issues in some of the communities, that makes for a tough place to learn how to be a good police officer.
So you compared shootings by Montreal police with those in Nunavik. Can you tell us more about that and those numbers?
Yeah, the high rate of violent police incidents in Nunavik isn't a new concern. From 2016 to 2018, the rate at which the Nunavik police killed or seriously injured someone on a per capita basis was roughly 55 times that of the Montreal police. In terms of this year, this is the third shooting incident involving police in Nunavik. It's the second in Inukjuak since July, when Jamie Kavik was fatally shot by police after he allegedly confronted them with a bladed weapon. So yeah, since 2022, there have been 14 incidents involving 16 people who have been seriously injured or killed following interventions by the Nunavik police. In that time frame, police have had 38. Montreal police have had 38 incidents during the same period, but serve a population of about 2 million, whereas Nunavik police serve a population, as you mentioned, of under 15,000, spread out over 14 communities. So, long story short, there's certainly a lot more incidents of armed force. I should mention these numbers also include incidents where like people die while in custody, like in a jail cell. There was actually a period of time where between 2019 and I would say right up until last year, 2024, where the incidents were actually down. There was a period there of relative, I don't want to say peace, because there were still incidents of folks who died in custody, died in jail cells, but the shootings abated for a bit. I don't know if that had anything to do with the pandemic or if it was just a coincidence, but there certainly has been an uptick since November of 2024. That sort of speaks to like the earlier period of violence that I covered earlier in my career. So no definite answers there. It's just interesting to note.
And how are people responding to, some of the issues facing policing at a community level? What have you heard, I guess, from the community?
Well, as I said earlier, trust in the police is very low. Even prior to this incident, there have been protests in various communities over police violence. Um, the aunt of the young girl who died, when I spoke to her, she said something. I don't have her direct quote in front of me, but something to the effect of, "We don't even call the police anymore. We just try to handle things ourselves because we don't want anyone to die." You hear things like that, and that just makes you feel awful for the whole situation that everyone's going through there.
So, as you mentioned, you spoke with the family. I'm wondering if you could share, what you heard from them or, how they're feeling at this moment.
They are just devastated. I have her quote here somewhere. Yeah, the incident has caused profound distress within our community. We are deeply concerned about the circumstances surrounding the use of force, the actions taken by police, and the adequacy of existing oversight mechanisms in such situations. So that's the quote that Lucy gave me to read, the aunt of the girl who died. I guess one thing that she shared with me as well, the man who has been charged, she felt it was important to me to mention that he is a fisherman. He's a really good at fishing. He provides food to the community. That's for those of you who don't know, the Inuit are still very big on hunting and fishing, and they still have a very communal practice. Like if you fish or hunt more than you can eat, then you share with the community. And so the man facing charges is well regarded in the community as a fisherman and provider for the community. So there's in addition to the devastation caused by the death of a very young girl, there's also this man, 36 years old, was in some ways at least a valued member of the community who is now facing some very serious charges.
So, like in other jurisdictions, there's now going to be an investigation after this police involved incident. And I'm wondering what has come out of these in the past?
Well, as I mentioned just before, Quebec has an agency known by its French acronym, BEI. Some of the criticisms that they face, a lot of them are former police officers themselves. In my earlier stories that I did, this dates back to 2018, 2017, I did come across an access information request where the head of the BEI sent letters to the head of the Nunavik police chief indicating that certain procedures weren't followed by the officers while the BEI was doing their investigation. But then publicly, the BEI was on the record as saying that procedure was followed perfectly. So, like, which is it basically, right? And so there's definitely a lot of criticism you hear from folks, not just in Inuit territory, but around Quebec, that the BEI is a little too comfy with the police. Well, I guess also it's the Crown that decides the press charges. So the BEI, in all fairness, the BEI has to present their investigation to the Crown, and the Crown needs to decide if that's worth pressing charges or not. So, long story short, I guess there's definitely a bit of heat coming from the communities down on the BEI in terms of their practices and in terms of how things are conducted in the North. I think it's also maybe fair to say, too, that maybe we don't see many recommendations, if any, coming from the coroner in terms of how the police can maybe do a better job. So that's those are sort of criticisms I've heard in the past and to this day.
And what has Inuit leadership been saying about this situation?
Yeah, I have a quote here from a statement sent by Maggie Mudlook, head of the Nunavik regional government. Start quote: "We need to start talking about our social fabric. It's on all of us to come together to reduce violence in our communities. The shooting in Inukjuak reminds us of the fragility of life in our communities and that the increased rate of violence is something that must be addressed immediately." End quote. So that's interesting to me in the sense that it acknowledges that this is a complicated issue that likely needs several solutions to tackle it. But it certainly doesn't reflect the anger that I'm hearing and seeing from people who feel that the Nunavik Police Service isn't doing enough to use less lethal force and better de-escalation tactics. At the end of the day, I think everyone can agree that yes, social issues need to be addressed, but realistically, undoing intergenerational trauma takes time, and what can be done now, be it rubber bullets or better recruitment of Inuit to be police officers, is an important discussion to have, and people want to have it now.
Tom, was there anything else that you think is important to know about the story?
As a journalist, I kind of found myself covering these issues, and it's a funny thing that happens to you sometimes in this job where you kind of become known as the guy who does that one thing. And I kind of became known a bit to some folks in Nunavik as the guy you call when something bad happens at the police or you need to deal with the coroner. And I guess in a funny way, I'm sort of honored that people feel like they can reach out to me. But I also feel these stories are tough to cover, and my heart is with folks in Nunavik. And I hope that going forward we can continue to cover this story in a more in-depth fashion. And hopefully, most importantly, I hope we just see some solutions coming soon in terms of how to sort this all out. The Inuit, at the end of the day, are resilient people. And I guess the question is not so much how to fix this, but how to fix this in a way that's sooner rather than later.
Tom, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Cierra.
This episode was produced by Mark Blackburn and edited by Jesse Andrushko. Charmaine Straker is the executive producer of APTN News InFocus. We want to know if you're enjoying the show. Please leave a rating and review on your favorite player or email suggestions to infocus@aptn.ca. Also, give us a follow. It helps other people find the show. I'm Cierra Bettens. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.
Homeless people aren't hard to find in Winnipeg. They're on the sidewalks, in bus shelters, and down alleyways. They're living in tents and squatting in empty buildings. They're even sleeping in abandoned cars. But who are they? And why are they here? Find out in Our Relatives, Life on the Streets, hosted by me, Kathleen Martins. Listen on your favorite podcast player.